behind and feeling like the things that you want just really aren't happening. So I know I mention here a lot about Instagram trends and reels. That's where I mostly hang out. And something that was going viral last week was this 5 years ago and 5 years later carousel post. So I don't know if any of you have seen it on my Instagram. You can go over there and have a look now. But I love an excuse to talk about what happens in the past and where you are now, and to celebrate and to say, oh my goodness, look how far I've come, look how much has changed. And this post was all about the start of lockdown, because it was, many of us had very different experiences of lockdown, but for a lot of us, and especially freelance business owners, we experienced extreme growth around this time. And the post was really saying, like, look how much can change in that amount of time. Look how far my life has come. So I wrote this post. I'm going to read it out in a minute. And I was typing away, and then I shared it. And then I got a nice response and a few nice comments. And then I was like, I felt uneasy. I just sat and I was thinking, this isn't the full picture. It's like a movie montage, when the movie star gets a glow up and all of a sudden there's some nice music, and then it's like, ta-da, they're a whole new person with a whole new wardrobe and a whole new personality. And I was just thinking that this is only like and I know that's what social media is, just like the biggest snapshot of the truth of actually what my life has been for the last 5 years. And then I started to think about that middle space, like what I actually did in those 5 years and what actually helped me. Because I didn't expect to be where I was at 33. I would thought I would be in a completely different place. And I remember being riddled with that thought and really, really stressed about it. And then I started a lot of different things, and loads of changes took place, lots of big decisions were made. And that resulted eventually in the results that I had however many years later. And I like to think of the analogy of I was planting the seeds, and I got myself out of that mindset of I'm so behind to, okay, this is my path, and this is an opportunity for growth. This is an opportunity for something new. So to go back to the post was 5 years ago, was the beginning of lockdown. This girl was, and it was struggling in a sales job. That was a means to an end. I was working tirelessly on my coaching side hustle in the evenings and in breaks at work, building the Turning 30 community. I had this idea to start a podcast about your 30s, but I was completely terrified at the prospect of doing it and what people would think of me and exposing myself and talking in public. I couldn't even hear the sound of my own voice. I was in an unaligned relationship, and I was really going backwards and forwards whether I should carry it on or I should leave. I was every single day had a different opinion, riddled with doubt and questioning if I would be able to cope with a huge breakup at that age. I was terrified of the prospect of dating and being single again. I just was like incoming everywhere, horror stories about dating. And even though all of these things were going on, I was still, after all that, a coach, and I was fully committed to building my next chapter, on doing the work and trying to figure it out, even though it just felt like everything was so far behind and I was so far behind. And then we flash forward 5 years later, and this is what the carousel post said. 5 years later, I'm a full-time business owner, and I've helped hundreds of women, probably thousands of women actually, if you take into account just my social media, but hundreds of women have paid me to help them with their 30s. I'm now running an amazing membership program, something that I dreamed up many years ago. I have a podcast with over 300,000 downloads, and it's just a passion project that I absolutely adore. I'm in an aligned and fulfilling relationship, and we just celebrated our baby's first birthday 2 weeks ago. And yeah, that relationship is a different relationship than I was in, obviously, five years ago. And we'll talk about this in the messy middle. I went through all of the dating and everything. And now I'm living on an island in Thailand, and I'm working in my business full time as a digital nomad. And it's like when you put those two visions side by side, it just seems so absurd to think how much can change in 5 years. But really what this episode for isn't to celebrate myself or blow my own trumpet. That's what it feels a little bit like. But I want to talk about the in-between bit. because the messy middle was really actually what I think will help all of you who are here. And maybe you're in the before and everything feels like you just don't have a clue where to go next. You don't know what's coming. You don't have a plan. You know that you're stuck in a job or in a relationship or in an environment that you don't want to be in. Or maybe you're further ahead. Maybe you are already inside the messy middle. So I think this is a really hard place to be, actually. You've already stepped up. You're already doing the work. You've already made some huge decisions. You've really got clear on where your goals are, but you're just not there yet. So I want to just share a little bit of the things that helped me, or actually not necessarily what helped me, but what the messy middle looked like. And then you can take away from my messy middle what can help you. So I would say the first big thing of the messy middle, and actually this is the first thing that happened, is acceptance. So really getting to terms with that feeling of being behind. And that isn't bypassing that feeling and saying, okay, all good, you're behind, cool, move on. I often hear in people's content coaches that it's like, okay, like don't spend too much time dwelling in what was or what is, let's just keep pushing forward. And I don't think that really helps, because I think that what we actually need to do is feel okay with where we are now. Because as I always say in my next chapter course, I have a whole module on reflection and acceptance before we get into the action part, is that you absolutely cannot build a house on rocky foundations. You can't build a house with no foundations, because the house will just blow over. So you can go ahead and make the decisions and start the processes that you want to change. But if you don't actually make sure that you're doing all of this from a place of being okay with where you are, then probably it's not going to be sustainable change. So something that I did was I really got to terms with the fact that my path was my path, no one else's, and I started to grieve a little bit about what could have been. And I think this is important. I actually have a whole episode on this, so I'm not going to dive into it in too much detail now. But this episode is called Grieving the Other Path in Your 30s. You can just go onto my podcast and search the word grieving and it will come up. I cannot tell you how many people reach out to me almost every week and share that this episode really, really helped them to reframe how they feel about their 30s and where they are right now. Because I think that there was something really, really special and important about saying, yeah, it feels like a part of me is missing, because by this age I thought, and whatever that thing is for you. So for me, it was, I thought I would be married, or at least in a serious relationship. I thought I would be on the way to starting a family. I thought I would have money in the bank. I really thought I would have figured out my career and I would be really successful. And our options then going forward is to radically accept that this is where we are right now. And in the membership every month, I think I mentioned this in the start of the episode, I send a resource, monthly resource out into what I call the vault, which is where you can go and look for resources. And once you join, you get the backlog, you get all the previous ones. And for March, I have just recorded a really great voice note all about radical acceptance and how to actually get to a place where you feel that you do accept where you are, because I think that this is a topic that needs more attention. And one of the members said that this was the missing link for her in her healing process. And I think it's a missing link for many of us. So yes, in the messy middle, I focused on acceptance. And it wasn't like I pressed a button and just accepted and moved on. Acceptance is something that's going to come up again and again and again and again in your life, in your journey, especially if you're feeling behind and feeling that it's not exactly as you imagined. Acceptance is key, and it's not easy and there's no quick fix, but it's something that you can absolutely do with the right tools and with the right guidance. So that was one big part of the messy middle. Now, the next part was fully committing to my next chapter. And that means actually really going all in on myself, because the truth is that many of us want the next thing to come. We want to be out of this pain point that we're in, being behind or not being sure. And we already want to be ahead, or we want to move forward, but we don't actually either know what that is, or we're not really, really invested. And for me, I was just like, okay, if I want to see huge growth in my life, in all the areas of my life, I have to stop just expecting that someone is going to come and save me. I have to stop expecting that the circumstances are just going to change in my favor and then everything will be okay. I did have a very strong belief that everything would be okay, but I knew that I was going to be the one to get me there. And I think this is something that a lot of us don't really know how to manage or how to do, because I think in our 20s we just, for me anyway, I was like breezing along and I did take responsibility for my life in so many ways, but I didn't take any huge risks. I didn't really make any very, very extreme decisions. I did make decisions, but they didn't necessarily feel extreme. But I just always had this feeling that things were just going to pan out. And when I was in my 30s and they didn't pan out, I understood that it was going to take me really crafting and creating and building this next season. And I had to take huge risks. And this was specifically in relation to being a business owner, that I was like, okay, if I am going to actually make this work as a full-time life coach, I can't just think that clients are going to come running to me. I'm going to have to really step up. And that meant investing in myself. So I invested in multiple coaches, I invested in courses. I just took huge risks, even when I couldn't afford to pay the bills. I worked tirelessly to make sure that I would get clients. And I did have months where I didn't get clients. I remember 2 months when I think I did 10 consult calls and I think I got 10 no's. And I remember a really low point, while this is true messy middle material, was that I had all of these one-on-one calls with people who I was trying to sell the coaching program to, the Turning 30 coaching program. And then I finally got a yes. And I was so excited. And I was just so relieved, like, thank God, I finally have this one client who was going to go all in. And I was really celebrating and feeling really good. And I sent her the contract and the details. And she was like, really, like, I'm so excited. Let's go ahead. And then the next morning, I wake up to a message from her saying, Emma, I'm so sorry. My account just got frauded for the exact amount of the coaching fee. So I no longer have this money. I might get it back, but I've decided not to go ahead with the coaching anyway. And it just felt like a dagger in my stomach of like, oh my God, is this real? Is this really, really real? And it was such a setback and it was such a failure and it was a really, really, really hard rejection. But then I just carried on going. And I think I got 3 or 4 more no's before I finally got a yes. And that yes, I actually took all that money and I invested it into a course to help me learn how to market and sell myself. And that eventually led to me becoming fully booked within a few months. So I was committed. I was just not going to let anybody stop me or for anybody to tell me that it was not a good idea to do all of these things. And believe me, people did tell me. People were like, why are you living alone? You don't have a full-time job. What are you going to do? How are you going to pay the bills? No one's supporting you. People would tell me that I should, make sure to get a stable salary before I invested. Oh, I had people in my ear all the time who were really confused why I was just so committed. But for me, I just got to the point where I was like, if I don't commit and just do all the things I'm going to say, I'm never going to see growth. I'm never going to actually live the life that I want to live. It is so important that if you want something different, that you have to have this belief in yourself and you have to say, okay, I am going to put my money where my mouth is, really signaling to the universe that you are here and you are ready to go to your next place, go to your next chapter. So the next thing that I think really helped me to get from A to B and to get through the messy middle was working on my mindset almost every day. Because I think that so many of us have these thoughts and subconscious thoughts and conscious thoughts that are constantly swirling around our mind, 60,000 thoughts a day, so they say, and only a very small proportion of those are actually our conscious thoughts. And we have never been taught what to do with those thoughts. And those thoughts are creating emotions for us. They're creating us to feel all of the emotions, whether that's angry or sad or the grief and the all of the emotions that we feel when we're in this before or the messy middle. And I think that a huge reason that I carried on, even when I felt rejected or I really made these huge big decisions in my life, was because I had the power that was given to me by a free tool called journaling, where I just day in, day out could go to my journal and talk about how I was feeling. Because so many of us don't do that. And yes, it was very, very important tool and skill, and something that I use. If you join the membership, you will see how journaling is such a huge factor in all of the work that I do, because I really believe that if you can watch your thoughts, if you can really not let your thoughts control you, but you can control them, then you can get out of your own way. And I want to say how important belief is. Belief that if you do all of these things, that good things are going to come your way. And journaling for me played a huge part in that. So the next thing that I think really helped me, and maybe this should have actually come before the acceptance part, but it's only just come to me now, so I'm not going to redo the episode, but is getting really clear on what I wanted, what I truly, truly wanted, and then actually creating a system so that I could get there. So many of us, and I think I mentioned this a few minutes ago, is that I think a lot of us really want to do the next thing and get out of the position that we're in now. But we don't actually really understand where we're going to. Maybe we look at social media, we look at our friends around us and we think the grass is greener and we want to go to the next place. But we don't actually have manageable goals. We don't have these practical measures for what we actually want and what that will look like. I think that goal setting is actually really underrated. And I am a coach. And if you've ever worked with me, you will know I'm not very coachy. I'm not like, okay, let's review your goals today. Let's, make sure that you are in line with your goals every single day. Like, absolutely not. It's not my style at all. But at the same time, I think it is really important that you have awareness of what your goals are so that you know you're going in the right direction. And for me, at this time, in this in between bit, in these 5 years, I worked with coaches all the time and I always knew what I was working towards. And sometimes that was working on with a business coach towards my business goals. I was also in therapy, so I was working very much on my emotional goals. And also, I did a dating course. So I really wanted to know, wanted to learn about myself in dating and love and relationships. And yeah, I just always knew exactly where I was going. The next thing is doing the things. And again, it's very underrated how important taking action is. So even when it was really scary, it was really uncomfortable, I had to get out of my comfort zone and do crazy things. For me, it was very, very, very uncomfortable to start a podcast and to come in front of the camera when I'd never done anything like this before and start to speak. It was terrifying to pay a few $1,000s when I had no money in the bank to hire a coach to help me. It was like even more terrifying to think about living alone when I never lived alone before and I had to take on a huge rent in the city. It was also really, really scary to go on a solo travel trip and book a flight and go somewhere that I'd never been before and navigate it all alone. So I think that this is something that we can get stuck on a lot. And I know each personality type is different, but I can see people around me sometimes they get really stuck in the phase of wanting to really prepare. So you get really into the goal phase or really into the acceptance phase, and then you get into the learning. So I'm just going to listen to every single podcast on this topic. I'm going to listen to every single blog post, or I'm going to just really do a course or do this thing. But no, if you want to see real change, if you want to get out of the behind place and move forward, you have to take action. You can't just sit still. Now, the next point I want to make, I think, is, a really important point for anybody at any point in their life, but especially if you're feeling like you're in the messy stage, is reconnecting with yourself. Something for me that had happened is that I've been in a relationship that wasn't serving me. And during this time, I had what you would call a glow down. I had lost my confidence. I lost my worth. I really was in a very low place in terms of who I was. And I think somewhere along the way over these 4 years, I just forgot my power and I forgot who I was. And it took me a while to get that back. But what really, really helped was taking the time to reconnect with myself and to discover who I truly was. Now, it might look different for every single one of you. It could be getting a new hobby. It can be, exercising more or doing something. It could be lots of different things. For me, it was solo traveling that really helped me and assisted me to come back to myself. And I just remember moments when I was solo traveling and I was away of being like, wow, I actually really feel like myself again. And I haven't felt that way for a long time. And I also want to say that I'm currently in the messy middle of my new chapter. So my new chapter of being a mum, of being a business owner who's running a membership, because this is something really new that I've never done before. I have obviously moved country. I am living in a new environment where I don't have friends. All of these things, I'm in the messy middle because life isn't exactly what I want it to be. I want to meet more people. I want my business to thrive and have thousands of people in the membership, which there will be. Just you wait and see. And I have to say, and maybe there will be more on this in the future, but I definitely lost my identity and lost parts of myself in having a baby and in moving on to this next stage of life. And this one thing of reconnecting with myself and who I truly am is something I am working on at the moment. And I have to tell you, the results of doing it are just so worthwhile. I have been journaling really nonstop for the last few months. I have been dedicated to a new workout routine. I've invested in a new therapist. I've invested in a workout coach. I have invested in another membership for my business to help me. I've really just decided that all of these things that I'm talking about with you today, I'm doing it right now. But of all of the things, the reconnecting with myself and who I truly, truly am and who the essence of Emma is the thing that is actually the thing that's making me feel better. And the other day I was having a massage because Thailand, as you all know, is famous for having amazing massages. And I went for one and I always feel great after. And I looked in the mirror to take a selfie for Instagram, yes, as you do. And as I took the selfie, I just had this literally like a moment that just hit me. And I thought, oh my goodness, I actually feel connected to Emma. I actually feel like Emma. And it was this really, really profound moment where I thought, oh my gosh, I have been in this messy middle for so long. And I was really struggling to swim to the other side and feeling just completely out of my depth. And there was just this glimmer of, yes, you're in the right place and you are coming back to yourself. And I want all of that for you. Now, the last thing I will say that is really important in this bit of life where you're feeling behind and you're feeling like you want to move ahead is to put yourself out there, to meet other people. Don't just stay in your cocoon. If you're in your cocoon, and I feel like this has got really popular, the feeling of the dark night of the soul and being in a cocoon and being alone, I think it's amazing. And that's why lockdown, I think, did work well with a lot of us because we had the chance to go into ourselves and reflect and do the acceptance work and do all of the great things. But if you want to move forward into that next chapter, then at some point you will have to put yourself out there. And whether that's in dating, whether that's going and meeting other people who are in the same position as you. And that is why I truly think that this membership, if you are in your next chapter, if you are wanting to be in your next chapter, is going to be amazing for you. Not to mention that when you sign up, you get instant access to my next chapter program. I really love this concept of consciously and intentionally designing your life. I think that that is what I've done and what's made my 30s as fabulous as they are. And that is not to say that it's all easy. It's not sunshine and roses. Absolutely not. But the messy middle is a journey. And sometimes it feels really, really hard because you just already want to be in the next place. So you just already want it to all be over and you're just like, okay, I'm finished now. But there's never really a time when you've truly arrived. There's definitely times when you can feel, oh, I'm living in my goals or I'm living the dreams that I wanted. Yes, but there will always be more. So it's really important that you actually enjoy this journey, which sounds so cliche and it sounds like something that we can write on a quote on the wall, but there is magic in the messy middle, and there is magic with feeling behind. Just knowing that you are going to get to that next place. You just need to go all in on yourself and stay patient and stay hopeful. And like my mum always says, you really never know what's waiting for you just around the corner. I hope that you enjoyed this episode. If you did, I would love it if you could rate the podcast, if you can give it 5 stars. I can't tell you how much I want to get this into as many ears as possible. And I would love to see you all inside the membership. I will see everybody on the podcast next week.